Join us now for Hurricane Hugo, 30 years later, a WIS News 10 special. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for this special look back at the fury and devastation of Hurricane Hugo. I'm WIS Chief Meteorologist Dennis Brown. For those who lived through Hugo, the memories are still vivid even 30 years later. The highest storm surge from Hugo measured at more than 20 feet near McClellanville. That's where we start tonight, where the impact of Hugo can still be felt and seen 30 years later. This was one of the most impacted areas during Hurricane Hugo 30 years ago. Lincoln High School here in McClellanville is here at the school where many people from the community took refuge from the power of the storm. But little did they know that water would rush in and turn their lives upside down.
As we were in there, I had given up hope. I just knew we would be gone. We would be gone.
Elizabeth Young will never forget Hurricane Hugo.
One lady that was in there, she said to me, she said, "Oh, Miss Young, look, we came here to drown." She said, "'Cause we can't get out of here."
Young and her family were just a few of many who went to Lincoln High School to stay out of harm's way from the hurricane. At the time, the school was designated as an emergency evacuation shelter. Instead of going to the crowded cafeteria to wait out the storm, she, her pregnant daughter, and her two grandsons went to the home economics room, where others were already hunkering down.
Oh, we had a nice evening. We had a very nice evening, laughing and talking.
Things were good until the power went out. Then things got worse. That's when a lady next to Young touched the floor.
Oh my God, she said, "We're in water." And I sat up and I said, "Water? What you mean water?" She said, "Put your hand down and feel." And when I put my hand down, as far as was covered with water. Then that's when I realized that water was coming into the building. I told everybody to get up now. I said, because water is coming in. But the water came in so fast until the glass on the door, the narrow glass on the door, the water, we could look and see the water coming up, up, up until it reached the ceiling.
They were trapped for hours. Some folks even panicked until the water slowly receded.
And when it got to be 6 o'clock in the morning, water was still right up to here. And by now, I have my two grandsons on the top of the refrigerator.
You said, you almost gave up.
I gave up. We gave up. We just knew we couldn't get out. You couldn't get a door open.
Luckily, no one was killed during that night of terror at Lincoln High. But for others in town, they were dealing with their own nightmare.
To step out my front door, all I saw was downed trees, limbs. We had cars that were up in the bushes, upside down, turned around. The whole town just looked like a disaster area.
Rutledge Leland has been mayor of McClellanville for more than 40 years. He had seen hurricanes before, but nothing like Hugo.
You can deal with a lot of things, but 6 to 8 feet of water in houses and streets and everywhere is an unbelievable thing to deal with.
Leland rode out the storm with his family at home, but the next morning, he saw how big of a mess he and his town had on their hands.
You talk about Hugo, that was his father's business right there.
There are still reminders of Hugo around McClellanville, like these blocks, sitting here for 30 years, from a business that was damaged during the storm.
You see a line going away from it toward the other door?
Yeah, to the, in that direction?
Yep.
That was the water line?
That was the water level.
Really?
Really.
It got that high?
It got that high.
So high that Mayor Leland showed us this picture of boats that washed up near his seafood business. One of them even tore off the corner of the building.
Wow. This was a row of boats that just all came right up there like that.
Leland said it took the town almost 2 years before they felt like a normal operating community again. Since Hugo, new building codes have been established and shelters are farther inland. The weather here along the Intracoastal Waterway is much calmer and quieter compared to 1989 when we saw the worst of Hugo, with its strong winds that brought water from here and the nearby Bulls Bay into many communities, homes, and devastated many lives.
That night, like I said, nobody thought it was really going to be that bad.
In fact, the storm surge was so bad down the road in Awendaw that Myrtle Jackson found this newspaper article when her husband's 60-ton, 58-still-hull boat he had dreamed to turn into a shrimp boat was washed about a quarter of a mile through the woods and landed in someone else's dirt roadway.
Right.
It wasn't until the day after the storm that Jackson and her husband found out the boat was pushed from the dock, an example of Hugo's power.
To get it back into the waterway, they needed logs and a bulldozer to pull it back in, and that's how they finally got it back overboard.
Although it's been 30 years, the memories of Hugo still linger for many people.
That's one day I don't think anybody will ever forget.
All we can do is hope and pray that it doesn't come this way again.
A storm many folks in the Palmetto State will always remember. Meteorologist